The true cost of the conflict isn't just measured in missiles overseas. It's measured in the fear and the rising gas prices hitting Americans right here at home.
What if the most dangerous part of the Iran war isn't the missiles, the military briefings, or even the fighting itself? What if the real danger is something far closer to home? Something Americans feel when they fill up their cars, open their grocery bills, watch another confusing headline, and start asking a question that should terrify any White House during wartime. Is there actually a plan? Because this story is no longer just about Iran. It's no longer just about Israel. And it's definitely no longer just about foreign policy. This is now a story about American trust, American money, American fear, and whether the people in charge know where this is going, or whether the country is drifting deeper into a conflict that fewer and fewer people believe is under control. And once a war starts feeling personal, people stop watching it like spectators. They start judging it like voters. That is where this gets serious, because the battlefield may be overseas, but the pressure is building here at home. And the first sign of that pressure is not military, it's psychological. A CBS News poll found that most Americans do not believe President Trump has a clear plan for the conflict. The same poll found that the emotions dominating public reaction are worry, stress, and anger. Not safety, not confidence, and not calm. It also found that relatively few Americans believe U.S. goals in the conflict are being clearly met. Think about what that means. In war, perception matters almost as much as power. A government can project strength, show footage of military strikes, speak in the language of deterrence and victory. But if ordinary people do not believe there is a clear strategy, then every new development feels less like control and more like improvisation. And that is when public support begins to crack. Not all at once, but slowly, then suddenly. And there's already evidence that this is happening. A Reuters Ipsos poll found that 66% of Americans want the United States to end its involvement in the Iran war quickly, even if that means not achieving all of the administration's goals. The same poll found that 60% disapprove of U.S. military strikes on Iran. That is not a minor hesitation. That is a loud warning from the public that patience is running thin. And when patience runs thin during wartime, the entire political meaning of the conflict changes. It stops being a story about resolve. It becomes a story about cost. That's the shift that matters. Because Americans can tolerate uncertainty for only so long before they start asking what exactly they are getting in return. What is the objective? What is success? What is the timeline?
And what happens if the timeline keeps stretching while the costs keep rising?
Those are not abstract questions anymore. They are becoming economic questions. Reuters reporting from inside the United States shows that many Americans are already connecting the war to rising fuel prices, household pressure, and fear about what comes next. People interviewed described anxiety about their finances, concern over gas costs, and a growing sense that the conflict is not some distant geopolitical drama, but something with direct consequences for everyday life. And this is where the story gets even more dangerous. Because once a foreign war starts showing up in domestic prices, it becomes political in a completely different way. Now, it's not just about national security. Now, it's about whether families can absorb another wave of pressure, whether businesses can handle more uncertainty, whether voters, already exhausted by inflation and instability, are willing to hear that more sacrifice may be necessary. That's a much harder sell. And the reason those economic fears are so intense is because the war is tied to one of the most important energy choke points on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. The BBC reports that instability around the Strait of Hormuz has shaken global markets, because roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through it. The conflict has already pushed oil fears higher, and at one point, Brent crude reportedly surged to nearly $120 a barrel as the region destabilized. That matters to every American household, whether or not they follow foreign policy. Because disruptions in global energy do not stay overseas for long. This is the moment where a war stops feeling like a map and starts feeling like a receipt. And that is why this issue is bigger than ideology. A Democrat may see the war as reckless. A Republican may see it as necessary. But both still have to pay for gas. Both still live in the same economy. Both still react when uncertainty spreads from the television screen into everyday life. That is the hidden force behind a lot of public opinion right now. Not just fear of war itself, but fear of what war does when it becomes expensive, prolonged, and difficult to explain. And if that were the only problem facing the administration, this would already be a serious challenge. But it isn't the only problem. Because at the same time the White House is dealing with the conflict abroad, it is also facing a political battle at home over who gets to define, limit, and authorize this war.
Reuters reports that Democrats in Congress are continuing efforts to rein in Trump's Iran war powers, arguing that Congress has been sidelined while the risks keep growing. Multiple resolutions have been filed, and lawmakers are trying to force a broader constitutional and political confrontation over how far presidential war powers can go without explicit congressional approval. That matters for one huge reason. It introduces a second crisis inside the first one. Now the administration is not only being judged on whether the war is working, it is also being judged on whether the process itself looks legitimate, transparent, and constitutional. And that kind of internal conflict makes any war harder to sell to the public. Because once Washington starts fighting over the war itself, voters start hearing two messages at the same time. One message says the situation is under control. The other says the country may be moving too fast, too far, and without enough accountability. When those messages collide, public trust usually does not get stronger. It gets weaker. And there's another reason this story refuses to calm down. Even the international analysis is raising uncomfortable questions about strategy. The BBC's analysis argues that the conflict increasingly looks like a test of instinct versus strategy, warning that wars launched with confidence can still turn into prolonged, asymmetric struggles if leaders underestimate the resilience of the other side and enter the conflict without a convincing exit path. The analysis suggests Trump now faces a difficult choice between declaring a victory that convinces few people or escalating a conflict that may become even harder to control. That may be the most important point in this entire story. Because the real test of a war plan is not whether it sounds strong at the beginning. Any administration can sound confident on day one. Any operation can be framed as decisive in its opening phase. Any president can use the language of necessity, urgency, and strength. The real test comes later. The real test comes when the costs appear, when public emotions turn negative, when the goals look less clear, when gas prices start rising, when Congress begins pushing back, when people ask not, can we strike, but where does this end? And that is the question hanging over everything right now. Where does this end? If the answer is clear, the administration has not yet convinced most Americans of it. If the answer is still evolving, that uncertainty is already shaping public mood. And if the answer depends on events no one fully controls, oil routes, regional escalation, fragile diplomacy, political backlash, then this war may be entering its most dangerous phase. Not because it is new, but because it is becoming familiar. Familiar wars are politically lethal. They're the ones people stop seeing as emergencies and start seeing as burdens. And burdens are hard to defend.
So here is the clearest way to understand this moment. This war is no longer being judged only by what happens in the Middle East. It is being judged by what happens in the minds of American voters, in the price of American energy, in the tone of American politics, and in the growing gap between presidential confidence and public belief. Right now, that gap looks real. Most Americans do not appear convinced that the goals are being met. Many do not believe there is a clear plan. A large majority want the conflict ended quickly. And that means the biggest threat to this war effort may not be a headline from overseas. It may be a simpler, more powerful force. An American public that is losing confidence faster than Washington is gaining clarity. So the question is no longer just whether the United States can keep fighting. The real question is whether the administration can still persuade the country that this war is controlled, justified, and worth the price. Because if it cannot, then the fallout at home may become just as important as the conflict abroad. And once that happens, the war changes. Not only in policy, not only in politics, but in the way the entire country sees it. And when that shift becomes permanent, it is very hard to reverse.